Hello everyone. This is a presentation on romantic poetry in English literature.
The timeline of the Romantic tradition is not a fixed one. Rather, the period between 1780 and 1830 is popularly known as the Romantic Age. Some critics consider it as 1789 with the publication of William Blake's Songs of Innocence, or as 1798 when Lyrical Ballads came out as a joint publication of William Wordsworth and Samuel Taylor Coleridge. And the ending of the year is often associated with the Victorian poet Tennyson's collection coming out in 1830 titled as Poems. Sir Walter Scott, who passed away in 1832, and this year is also considered as the year of ending of Romantic tradition. And Queen Victoria ascended to the English throne in 1837. Hence, the 1830s is regarded as a decade which saw the ending of Romantic age with various attributes. Moving on to the origins of the Romantic tradition, one can say that the origins cannot be traced to one figure or to one specific movement. In Germany, it was a reaction against dogmatism. In France, it was a revived interest in Christianity and Middle Ages. Victor Hugo carried the Romantic tradition to its loftiest heights, and he famously opined that Romanticism was a liberalism in literature. A look at the historical background of the movement would take us to the American and French Revolution. The age witnessed the flourishing of industries and a rapid development of the cities. Romanticism gave rise to a whole new way of thinking, which was in effect a reaction against the rationalism of the previous 18th century. It also gave rise to a rediscovery of local European cultures and the flowering of vernacular literatures. William Wordsworth and Samuel Taylor Coleridge constitute the first generation of poets. They were also known as the Lake Poets since they resided in the Lake District of England. They were followed by Shelley, Keats and Byron, comprising the second generation of Romantic poets. The Romantic movement in English poetry is generally described as a return to nature. Thus, nature, landscape and beauty were given much importance. Emotion, imagination and intuition were the mainstay of the Romantic period, as opposed to the reason and pragmatism of the age which preceded it, that is, the Augustan age. The individual and the inner self were explored in the poems. An interest in the ancient Greek and Roman classics was witnessed. A longing for the remote, the unknown and the supernatural, and a celebration of the simple and rustic life of the ordinary folks were other common themes. A sympathetic and nostalgic interest in the past was also portrayed. John Keats loved nature for the sensuous pleasures which she offered, whereas Wordsworth spiritualizes and Shelley intellectualizes nature. The oft-quoted famous definition of poetry by Wordsworth points to the spontaneity of powerful feelings. Major examples of Romantic poems would include Wordsworth's celebrated The Solitary Reaper, the joint publication by Wordsworth and Coleridge, which we have already mentioned, The Daffodils, again by Wordsworth, and other poems like Ode to a Nightingale, Ode on a Grecian Urn, Ode to the West Wind, and Coleridge's works The Rime of the Ancient Mariner, Kubla Khan, and Keats's Endymion. Let me draw your attention to a handful of immortal lines from the English Romantic poems. The opening line of Keats's Endymion asserts that beautiful things give unending pleasure. A thing of beauty is a joy forever. The superiority of the art and imagination over reality is captured in the famous line, "Heard melodies are sweet, but those unheard are sweeter." Wordsworth's lines about the best portion of a good man's life is indeed a pointer to the simple joys of life, which are the most priceless moments which make human life tender and meaningful. The best portion of a good man's life is little, nameless, unremembered acts of kindness and love. The burst of optimism in the closing line of Shelley's Ode to the West Wind is also a joyous proclamation of enduring hope. If winter comes, can spring be far behind? And to conclude, in Ode on a Grecian Urn by Keats, we have the final immortal assertion that beauty is truth and truth beauty, That is all ye knew on earth and all ye need to know.
Thank you for your patient listening.